Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Wednesday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Today's edition is a best of the 2000s. We're joined by Max Starks,
Gator wide receiver, played in the NFL for a long time. Now they have Louis Murphy.
With my man Dallas Baker here joining us. We're joined by former Gator Super Bowl champ, Big Max Starks. Good morning, Max. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, Shane. Happy to be here.
Actually, Maximilian Starks.
Yeah, that's right. The fourth on top of that.
Well, Max, let's go back to your younger days. You grew up in Orlando. You were a hoopster. I was reading that you used to play basketball as a youngster, and you couldn't find shoes to fit you. And old Shaq gave you some old hand-me-downs.
Yeah, Shaq was very gracious and kind enough. I wrote a letter to him, addressed it to the Magic facility, and and next thing I know, I got a humongous box full of all Reebok gear. Right, I had Emmitt Smith's in there, so I had some of his shoes. I had a couple of Shaq's style shoes, and they were big shoes. I mean, I had to stuff the toe box, for a little while, but I was excited because I was like, I actually have shoes that are in style and in fashion that were available to me. And so that was my first touch with dealing with professional athletes.
Well, you were a basketball player. When did you decide to try football?
Well, so here's the funny thing. My first passion was football, and I got denied. It was the Callahan Express Pee Wee football team in my neighborhood. And I went in for Pop Warner tryouts when I was like 6. And I got on that scale, the dreaded scale, and I was too big to play even with the higher ups in Pop Warner. I was too heavy back when it was weight classes. So I got turned away from football, and then it wasn't until high school until I got another opportunity to actually play. It was before City League football became popular, where it was by age, birth certificate, and no weight classes. So that was already passed. So it's my freshman year at Jones High School was my first chance at playing football.
Now, didn't you end up going to Lake Highland Prep?
Yeah. I switched over from Jones High School after my sophomore year, and I went to Lake Highland Prep my junior and senior years. Okay.
Yeah, you're a big human being, and people aren't aware Max is about 6'8". When he was playing, went about 370. Big human being. So I read somewhere Lake Highland Prep, or it may have changed now, but you're the only professional athlete that I think's ever come out of there?
Yeah, that's being tested. Obviously, you had Jordan Berry from North Carolina, Final Four kid, basketball, that was at Lake Highland as well, but he's kind of overseas right now, not in the NBA currently. But up until that point, I was still the first, and I won't likely be the only in the next couple of years. They're getting really good at sports, but I was the only professional athlete. I mean, we've had divers that have gone to the Olympics, Ricky Viola, and such. So we've had Olympians, but not necessarily professional athletes to the scale of the big sports in America.
So you get ready for your senior year. You start getting recruited by a lot of people around the country. What made you choose to be a Gator, and what other schools were you looking at?
So it was funny. Like my junior year was like I transferred schools. I was, in their spring jamboree, and a couple of schools had started to notice me, bigger schools, because my first scholarship offer was actually my sophomore year, and it was Citadel and University of Pennsylvania sent me my first formal offers back when I was at Jones. But none of the big schools really picked up. Like a couple of the HBCUs, Florida A&M, who comes in and recruits at the time for our band, had looked at us. BCC at the time, now BCU, Bethune-Cookman. Also, but when I got to Lake Highland, there's a lot more eyes. And then I went to a couple of camps. I went to University of Georgia's football camp that summer. I went to University of Michigan's football camp with a couple of my teammates. And then it seemed like that after that, I got a lot of attention. And for me, the top 5 came down to, it was Florida, it was Georgia, Florida State, USC, Notre Dame were right up there in my final choices. And UCLA was there for a little bit just because I wanted to go on the official visit, right? Anytime Hugh Hefner's name is thrown in with an official visit, you got to at least think about it. You know, and so when I was looking at it, and it came down to a visit that Coach Collins and Coach Spurrier took to my school. And it was during basketball season. We're sitting in our little gym. It's hot, and we're having basketball practice. And, you know, literally in the stands is Coach Spurrier, right? The head ball coach sitting up there, and Coach Collins watching my entire basketball practice. All my friends are, like, freaking out because, like, more than half of them are Gator fans. Like, dude, Steve Spurrier's watching our basketball practice. And the other guy's like, dude, he's not here for you. He's here for Max. I'm like, so it's like you get all of that, and we're running suicide, shooting free throws. And I remember going downstairs to our athletic director's office, and we sat in his office, and Coach Spurrier sitting right across from me, and he just asked me a simple question. He's like, Max, let's think about this. He said, your future is not behind the three-point line. It's in the three-point stance, son. You just need to go ahead and come on to Florida. What's that? And you're taken aback, right? You're a 17-year-old kid, and you think you're doing something in basketball. Like, I got a couple basketball offers, and just to have Coach Spurrier give you that Coach Spurrier-ism that you're always hearing about or seeing on press conferences in front of you, just took me back. And I never took an official visit to Florida. I went up there unofficially. One day, my mom and I were like, "Hey, let's just drive up. It's a close trip." And we spent the day there. We spent the day there with Dr. Carradine, with Coach Collins, Coach Spurrier, and just kind of went through the campus, went through the academics, and just did it unofficially on the weekend. And the rest of them, I went to Florida State, I went to Georgia, I went to Michigan, I went to Notre Dame, and I went to USC on those official visits. But that was an unofficial visit. And when it came down to it, I mean, it was just one of those things where I prayed about it the night before, and I just tried to think about, what would my future look like? Where would I have the best chance to succeed? And the night before, I was all in for Florida State, and my cousin, Travis Johnson, was all in on Michigan, and we're on the phone talking to each other. He's in California. I'm in Florida. I'm trying to tell him to come to Florida State, funny enough, and he's trying to pitch me to go to Michigan. And then that morning I prayed about it, and I was in my coach's office. I was just, please give me a sign, please give me a sign. I looked up in my coach's office that day, of all days, he had all the college helmets in his office. And for some reason, all of them were out getting refurbished, and the only full-size helmet that was in there was a Florida helmet that day. And he had no clue that I was even considering Florida because he knew what my official visits were. But that was my sign. I remember running through the athletic hallway and through the basketball gym up to where the signing day area was, and there was 4 of us signing. And I just walked in the room late holding the Florida helmet in my hand, and the room just erupted. Oh, wow. Waiting for this. And my mom, she ran to the mall and she grabbed like all 6 hats because she didn't know what hat to grab, and she couldn't find a cool Florida hat. So she went to, remember those little kiosks that where you could do the custom stitched hats and stuff? Oh, yeah, which was popular in the 90s, right? She had me a custom made Florida one because she couldn't find a Florida hat. So I'm wearing this, and so that's how I came up with Florida, and I was so excited, so ecstatic. And it was just, and ever since, I mean, it's been the greatest decision I ever made.
No doubt about it. We're speaking with Max Starks on the Titan More Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at MaxStarks78. So you get to the University of Florida, and Coach Spurrier was your head coach for a little bit, but you also had Ron Zook. Talk a little bit about, would you say the best team you were on? I want to say, was it 2000, 2001, Rex at quarterback. I had Jabbar on yesterday. You had Riche, Taylor Jacobs. That team a lot of Florida fans kind of overlook because of the loss to Tennessee late in the year. But that team was as talented as anyone. Talk about that team.
Yeah, that was our national championship team. I mean, point blank, not even going to deny it. That was the team that should have been playing in the national championship. You know, unfortunately, because of the events that happened earlier in that season with 9/11 up in New York, prevented that Tennessee showdown that weekend because all the stadiums were locked down for safety reasons, and it postponed the game to the game after FSU at the end of the year. But that team, I mean, we were so gifted. We were so talented because you talk about the weapons offensively. Also, Ernest Graham was in the backfield. Ernest goes down before that Tennessee game because of the whole Darnell Dockett knee injury. And then our offensive line, I mean, we had Mike Pearson on one side at the left tackle. I was at the right tackle. Shannon Snell, Tommy Moody at the guards. And then we had Zach Zadelis as a center, along with Dave Jorgensen running swing on the inside on the offensive line. Plus, we had Aaron Walker. We had Ben Troop at tight ends. So, I mean, you had those two tight ends, and Ben was just coming into his own. And then, of course, he explodes after that junior and senior year. But offensively, the most talented. And then you had Rex back there, who should have won the Heisman that year. But, of course, Eric Crouch wins the Heisman with rushing touchdowns and not passing ones. So, you know, that was a very talented. And then defensively, you think of Lito Shepard on the other side, Kewan Ratliff, your corners. Then you have Andre Davis. You have Alex Brown. I mean, you had all of these weapons. Marquand Manuel on the back half. We had such talented depth defensively as well. It was one of the best teams I ever played in. And outside of a 2-point conversion, you know, that can't get held in the back of the end zone, really kind of was the only thing that separated us from having a national championship and an SEC championship appearance back to back. And, you know, I look at that season, we were just building up for this. And that FSU game, we beat FSU that year. And Ernest Graham taking that injury really hurt our offensive firepower, not being able to be balanced. So we go into the Tennessee game at the end of the year, and it's a lot of spread because, you know, we don't have Rob G in the backfield, Robert Gillespie. You know, we still have Rand Carthon back there, but it still wasn't as experienced as having Ernest. Like, Ernest was the run game threat. And when we ran the ball with Ernest, it was a totally different look offense, but we had to go to a lot more 4 and 5 wide spread sets. And Tennessee was doing something at that time that we hadn't seen all year. It was that Baltimore Ravens schoolyard walk-around defense. And had we have played Tennessee earlier in the year, they would not have had Will Overstreet. They would not have had John Henderson playing in the game. So that defense was nothing without them. Well, we get fast forward to the end of the year, you got a healthy John Henderson standing 6 yards off the ball where a Mike Backer would be and charging full steam ahead because there's no silent count, and was just blasting Zadelis. And I think at that point it was actually Dave Jorgensen was in at center and blasting him off the ball, and Will Overstreet standing up, Constantine Ritzman. All these big guys were standing up and running around, and we had no answers for it, but we held that game to a 2-point conversion. And if Kelvin Kite didn't hold on to the ball, I mean, we're talking a different story. But that team was just so talented. The points we put up, the yards we put up was just phenomenal that year.
Yeah. Max, you get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, you go and win 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's pretty nice. I mean, I played 14 years, and I couldn't even make it to a NFC or AFC championship game. Talk a little bit about how cool it was playing for one of the best franchises in all of football and being a Steeler.
It was a blessing. I mean, University of Florida prepared me for the stage that is the NFL, right? Because, you know, when you play SEC football, you play in front of 100,000 fans. You kind of get used to the enormity of the moment. And when you get to the NFL, that same enormity of the moment can either consume you or can empower you. But when I got to Pittsburgh, I didn't understand the tradition, right, of Pittsburgh at the time. You know, I'm a Southern kid. I'm from the South. I watched the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. I mean, that was really, the only 2 teams I really knew about growing up. And I think to go up there to Pittsburgh to learn that history and to learn what it meant to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, that blue-collar mentality and the pride that a town takes in its team was just like Florida. If you're in Gainesville or you're in any surrounding area of Gainesville, people take pride in being a Gator. And I think that was kind of cool to step in from one historic organization or franchise, so to speak, and step into this one at the professional level. It was a smooth transition. And, I mean, the history of the Steelers is the Steelers, right? I mean, at the time, that was the third head coach ever, Bill Cowher, who drafted me. And to know that they were loyal to their guys and that if you bought into, being a blue-collar mentality and working towards goal, it's going to pay off. And, my first year, I'm in there. I get drafted with Ben Roethlisberger, who's still playing to this day. And the guys that we had there, the Alan Fanecas, the Jerome Bettises, Deuce Staley, Joey Porter, a young Troy Polamalu, who's only a year older than me at the time. All of these great Steelers that you're getting to play with and understanding the history and appreciating what standard they set for us. And for us to just hold the standard was amazing. And then, my second year, my first year starting, we marched through 20 straight games. We fought and clawed at the end of the regular season to get that 6th seed. And then on the road, all 3 playoff rounds to culminate in Detroit, which was special to me because my mother's from Detroit originally. So to go back to my mom's hometown and play a Super Bowl, only the second time ever it's been played there, and knowing at that point the history that the only of the time Super Bowls played in Detroit was the year I was born, 2 weeks after I was born. I was born January 10th. That game was played on the 24th. And the only other person to play in that game that I knew was my father, Ross Browner. So to have that special moment of knowing my father played here, to the moment, almost 24 years before me, and to then go there and play and then build upon that because he lost that game. It was San Francisco. I mean, who was going to stop the San Francisco 49ers and Joe Montana at that time? Nobody. But to go there and then win that game was so special. And then, of course, to get to do it a couple years later down in Tampa, the closest I would get to my hometown, made it really cool. And to go to 3 Super Bowls in my career was, like you said, a true blessing because for guys like you and for so many other football players, not even getting the chance to do that, I got to do it 3 times. You almost feel ashamed that you got to do it so much because, it's like, what did I do to deserve this? And I'm blessed and thankful for it. But it was such an amazing run, such an amazing team to have that opportunity. It's like, okay, I didn't get a national championship, but this extra Super Bowl kind of makes up for it.
Maximilian Starks IV. We appreciate you joining the show, my man. It was awesome. We run out of time. Be safe out there in Arizona. Hopefully we'll be talking some college and NFL football here soon. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Appreciate it, Shane. Fingers crossed on that. Fingers crossed on college football, man.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker M.M. Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
we're joined by former Gator wide receiver, two-time national champ, Louis Murphy. Good morning, Louis. How are you?
Man, good morning. Good morning, Shane, man. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, my man. You got your Buccaneer gear on. Just so everybody knows, you're the head football coach at Gibbs High School in St. Pete, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to go back to the young Louis Murphy, high school star, track star, and we got a text here on the Titanmar text line. It comes from Daryl. He wants to know why Louis Murphy became a Gator.
First of all, I want to say, man, it's an honor to be on your show, man. Grew up watching you, as a Gator fan, and I've always been that player, man. I always give credit which credit's due, man, and pay homage, man. So, what was your question? What was your question again? Okay, well, what made me choose to be a Gator?
Yep.
Well, man, I grew up. Man, I grew up loving Florida State, and Miami. I grew up liking all the teams. Florida State was hot at the time. Miami was hot at the time, coming out in early 2000s. And honestly, man, just to be completely transparent, I told myself whichever out of the big three offer me, that's where I'm going first. And Florida was the first one under Ron Zook, and Larry Fedora took a shot on me at a football camp, man. And my junior year, we were 0-10, Shane. We were 0-10.
Oh, wow.
My junior year. So just imagine, junior year trying to be recruited. I had the USFs and the FAUs, FIUs. But, so I did the camp trail, just grinding it out. And Florida was the first one to offer. So that's kind of what solidified it, man. But, I grew up liking all the teams, all sports, man. So.
Yeah, I forgot you came in, with Zook and that crew, and then they had a coaching change.
I was offered, by Zook and Larry Fedora, but I only played under Meyer.
That's right. So you played all years under Coach Meyer, and there's a lot of talk about Coach Meyer possibly going and coaching the Jaguars. Just talk a little bit about what made Urban Meyer the coach he is. We've heard about all the how he motivates players, all those mat drills or competitions of tug of war or wrestling or whatever y'all did. Just talk a little bit about what made Coach Meyer, how he was wired.
Man, he was wired, man. Some stories, man. You were Spurrier's first year, right?
Yes.
You were Spurrier's first. So you understand, coming in with a new head coach, first year, you're a freshman, he's coming in to set the law. And, man, honestly, man, all my teammates that's been from Mississippi have been great teammates, man. So I just got to say, like, Jason Campbell, man, one of my close friends as well. But, yeah, just coming in under Meyer, coming in that first year, man, he came in cracking that whip, man. He was awarded, man. It was very militant, man. It was very militant. It was not no nonsense. He was coming in with a purpose. He set a standard. He used to always say, man, leaders set a standard and demand that everyone lives up to it. And man, it was just everybody was on eggshells, man. For after the first championship, everything eased off. But until then, man, it was rough, man. It was rough. The workouts were intense. He had a no tolerance, non-negotiable, anything for any nonsense, anything like, man, the marijuana and, skipping class, man, it was punishment, man. And, but it set the culture, it set the temperature of what he expected from us. And then he just set one motto, was I believe him, Saban, and Belichick all use the same motto, is just do your job, do your job and everything else will take care of itself, All 11 guys doing their job.
Yeah.
All 11, we can't have 9, we can't have 10. We got to have all 11 guys doing their job. And I think that's what everybody bought into that and that mentality. And, just everybody just handling what they need to handle, and that's what kind of helped us, succeed.
We're speaking with Louis Murphy here on the Titanmar Hotline, two-time national champ here at the University of Florida. And so, Louis, you got to play with Tebow, and with Chris Leak, who's our all-time leading passer. I think a lot of people forget that about Chris. Tremendous player. Talk a little bit about what it was like playing with Chris as the quarterback. And we do know in 06, Tebow was on that team, but he was more, I like to call him a fullback that year.
Yeah.
He was a fullback. And then he became the quarterback and won in 08. But just talk a little bit about the leadership skills of both of those guys.
Man, two great leaders, man. You know, Tebow was that workout warrior, you know, and Chris worked out hard as well. But he was more so like that quiet leader. You know, it was, you know, kind of two different approaches. Tebow too was quiet. Tebow, honestly, that's another thing. Tebow didn't really say too much, man. You know, the media portrays him as someone that, you know, said a lot and did a lot of motivational speeches. Like he didn't really say too much, man. I mean, you had, probably 5 to 10 first rounders surrounded by him, man. And, you know, he didn't say too much, man, but he led by action. They both led by actions. You know, they Tebow, one of the hardest workers, if not the hardest worker I've ever been around. It was, I mean, of course, Chris Leak threw the most prettiest ball that, you know, a lot of people say that a lot of people have ever seen. Yeah, man, it was they both had their own ways of leading, but and I would say they both were kind of quiet and subtle leaders, man, more so than anything. Now that I actually really think about, that's a great question.
Yeah. We got a text here, or excuse me, a Facebook Live brought to you by Melton Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. John wants to know, Murph, what's the story about Tebow stealing your speech at halftime of the 08 championship game?
Oh man, hey man, you gotta watch the video, man. You know, that speech, man, you know, being the captain on that team, a lot of people talk about that. Well, I know about it. I mean, you know, it was in the moment, man. It was in the moment, man. I was more of a vocal leader, you know, on the team. And my man Tebow, man, just came in flowing, man, like the Holy Ghost caught him, you know. If you watch really watch that clip or that 30 minutes, you know, you could kind of see me talking before and he just barges through. But Tebow, for that, man. You know, I love you, man. You can talk anytime. You can interrupt me anytime you want to, man.
Hey, Lewis, let me ask you this. I know as the 06 team, you weren't a starter, I don't believe. I think you played a little bit.
Yeah.
In your mind, you know, because a lot of people want to compare the national championship teams from the 96 team with Werfel and his crew, the 06 and 08. Which team's better, the 06 or 08 team?
Oh, man. That's it. I would say I would have to, I don't know, I guess I would have to answer that question with a question, man. I would compare the 08 team and the 06 team to Coach Meyer's Ohio State championships teams. And that can be politically correct.
Yeah.
But you know, they both teams were great, man. And of course I was a senior, man, you know, so you know I would give the nudge too. But both teams were explosive, man, and I feel like we had a lot of great leaders, like the Dallas Bakers and the Chris Leaks and you know, those guys, man, Jamel Cornelius, you know, those guys were good leaders. And then 08, man, we had a bunch of studs, man. The Pounders, you know, Percy Harvin, Carlos Dunlap, guys still playing, Janoris Jenkins, Joe Hayden. You know, they're still in the league right now, you know, playing at a high level. I mean, call him Joe Diggity, they were 10-0, Steelers were 10-0 for a while. And, you know, in the playoffs, Janoris Jenkins with the New Orleans Saints. Pouncey is the center for Ben Roethlisberger the last 10 years, 7 years, 12 years. You know, Pouncey has that new kid over in LA with Justin Herbert from Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Dunlap just got put on with Seattle. He's finally getting out of Cincinnati, which I know he couldn't wait to get out of. So, I mean, man, that team there, man, it's loaded, man, top to bottom.
It definitely was loaded, no question. We got a Facebook Live here. It comes from Brandon. He wants to know what your thoughts are on about these college players opting out. What are your thoughts?
What's your thoughts, Coach? Man, you tell me.
Well, I look at it this way, Lewis. If you're guaranteed a first round pick like Kyle Pitts, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear your point. I think playing in college football is the greatest experience you'll ever have. I mean, you play 8 or 9 years in the league. It's different, because in college, it's a bond. It's guys that you're going to hang out with, you're going to talk with the rest of your life. Whereas in the pros, you got a couple good buddies, but you may never see them. You may text them or whatever. But college is different, and you only have a short period of time to play college football. You're playing for your university. I think those kids, if you're not a guaranteed first rounder, you need to play because you may make your team better. But I know they're concerned about injury, but heck, you can get hurt at the Senior Bowl. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, man, I would have to agree with you, man. Of course, but then, talking to a 19, 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid, man, and telling them that they think the NFL is the greatest experience of going to be of their life because they're making money, and which, we all understand out, man, like, I heard it, college is going to be your best experience, college is going to be your best experience, and then come find out they were right. We go to the league, man. I remember getting drafted to the Oakland Raiders, man, and walking out in the stadium for pregame warm-up, and it was literally like you could hear like birds chirping, like it was like nobody there. It was like probably 10,000 people, coming from the swamp to the Coliseum, man. I was like, man, well, this is the NFL. It wasn't had an experience like, so. I think, both they have some validity, like you said, first round, Kyle Pitts. I honestly think Tony could be a first round pick. I think he's a Percy Harvin type of player, Alvin Kamara type of player, but he probably won't go first round. I actually was surprised Trash played. Because, I see him. I don't know. You're a quarterback. I would give him a first round grade. From this year, he over 40 touchdowns, under 10 interceptions, 4,000 yards passing. But like the guys that are on the bubble that get that second round, that third round, fourth round tier, fifth round tier, I think you should play in the bowl game. But if you're a guaranteed first lock, which we all know, who's going to be a lock, lottery pick, you should definitely, opt out.
Yeah, speaking of Kyle had a tremendous year. I think he's supposedly the sixth quarterback in their, Mel Kiper and all those guys. So they're thinking maybe second, third round. But he's a guy that, in my opinion, he may not be a starter in the NFL, but he's going to last a long time. He's a much better player than some of the guys you had as quarterbacks. I mean, think about. They look at the NFL like Jamarcus Russell was one of your quarterbacks in Oakland. Had all the talent in the world, but he can't play a lick when the bullets start flying.
Yeah, exactly, man. Trash goes through his reads, man. I was at a spring practice, I think about 3 years ago, and I was out there with Dan and with Coach, man, and watching practice, man, and he just kept jumping out to me. I was like, man, this kid Trash, Coach. I was like, this kid is your quarterback, Yep. And, at the time they had Franks there, and I was like, I like Franks, but Trash was just zipping it around, man, and it wasn't like he was going down the field. He was hitting the bench routes. Simple reads, smash concept. They're off coverage, taking the hits right away. Opposed to patting the ball back there, or I remember he hit like I don't know what they call it, bench route, circus route, to the corner man and put it right in front of the receiver. versus cover 3, man. And I was like, wow, man, this kid really can throw the ball. He hit a deep dig coming in on the backside. And I was like, I like this quarterback, man. And Lord, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt. But when Franks went down, man, that Kentucky game, man, I ended up on my bets. I went up on my bets, man. I was like, man, Trash Kid, and everyone was like, oh no, man, we don't know who is this kid. And I was like, watch. And then he came in and slinging it around, come out, we were down by 10, came in, won the game. I like him, man. Like you said, you played, 15 years?
14 somehow. I don't know how.
Man, shoot, man, I know how. Shoot, you understand the game, man. Man, I think the backup quarterback is one of the best positions, man.
It is. There's no question. Lewis, last thing before we run out of time here. Last thing for you, I want the Gator Nation to know you're a head football coach in high school at Gibbs High School. What made you want to get into that, and do you enjoy coaching young kids at the high school level?
Man, I love it, man. I love it. I love coaching kids at the high school level, man. I want to come back on the show, man, because I want to pick your brain, man, because you're a head high school football coach. I want to know about this third-string kid that came in at the end of the game, Anthony, what is he, from Eastside High School?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anthony Richardson.
I'm pretty sure you've seen him, man.
Yep.
I want to, I love kids, though, man. I've always loved kids. I've done a nonprofit first down school. I lost my mother to breast cancer when I was 20, my senior year at Florida. And, she worked with kids, man, and that's always been my passion. So, just, going through you've been a coach for years now, man. I'm, first year learning the whole how it goes, man, and, just building a program, man. I don't want a good team. I want a good program. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's good stuff. Well, we're going to have you back on. We ran out of time, Lewis. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Good luck to your Buccaneers down there this weekend.
Yeah,
and
go Bucs, man.
We'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, Shay, man. Take care, man.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Good morning, Dallas. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Can't complain, my man. Let's before we talk about your coaching career and all that good stuff, let's go back to your days. You grew up in New Smyrna Beach, was a stud football player there. I think you played a little hoops too. Talk a little bit about, I think I read you were supposed to be in Coach Spurrier's final recruiting class. I don't know if it was some academic deals or what have you. You ended up going to a prep school up in Massachusetts. But talk a little bit about what made you want to be a Gator and what was it like being recruited by Coach Spurrier?
Okay, so my uncle is Wes Chandler. That's my mom's brother. We're very close. He was like he's like a father figure to me. So I would say probably around maybe 6 or 7 years old when I really started to understand football. Everyone in my family was rooting for the Gators because my uncle played there. I had a cousin that walked on there. Other family members went to school there. So it was basically like you had no choice but to be a Gator fan. And then when I really started paying attention, because I started playing Pop Warner football, I started watching guys like yourself and Jack Jackson and on. So it made me say, hey, I'm going to be a Florida Gator when I grow up, just like any other kid would. And then once I got into high school, good Lord blessed me to have coaches like Jerry Odom, who also played for the Florida Gators.
That's right.
To help me understand the game even more. And then Coach Spurrier came to my parents' house and we talked. And for me, it was like seeing a movie star because I was a diehard Gator watching him on TV. And it's like, oh my God, like Steve Spurrier sitting in my parents' living room. So, and everyone knows Coach Spurrier. He walks through the door and he gives me the famous, hey, my man. And then that just set it off from there. I'm like, oh man, like this doesn't seem real. So that's actually how I ended up saying, you know, I'm going to the University of Florida, and I had some test score issues. My grades were fine. I just struggled with the test score. So I ended up signing, but because of my test score, I ended up having to do a prep school year at Northfield Mount Herman. And then I came back, I want to say it was like halfway through the school year, and I ended up being a prop. So thank the good Lord it all worked out.
No doubt about it. You ended up playing mostly at Florida with Coach Ron Zook, and then Urban comes in. Talk a little bit about the energy that Coach Zook coached with.
Oh, man. So everyone will tell you Coach Zook is a player's coach. I mean, every day he had energy. I remember one year I sprained my ankle, and he actually got into a water skiing accident where he messed his ankle up. And I'm in the whirlpool first, and the entire time he just messed with me like, oh, you can go harder than that, and just messing around. So in my head, I'm like, man, wait till this old guy get in here. I'm going to give it back to him. And still to this day, I have not seen anyone run against waves the way he ran against the waves. And I'm like, man, this guy, energy, his work ethic, everything is unbelievable. So we give a bunch of credit to Coach Zook because the way he brought all us guys in that helped won that national championship, you know, that was a part of his class, and just the energy he had every day.
Let's talk about your career at Florida. Is there one game, and I don't know which one it may be, but is there one game that stands out in your mind that you'll remember the rest of your life, Dallas?
Whew. Probably not one game. I mean, there's a couple of games that I talk about a bunch. Of course, I always talk about my freshman year when we played Miami, just the atmosphere and how we had those guys we should have closed. I actually was talking about it today with the coach here. Of course, the national championship game, the game against Alabama when we lost, I want to say 34-3, because I always talk about like how that was actually a turning point in my career to become a leader. I never wanted to lose like that again, especially not having that Gator patch on the front of my jersey. Maybe playing LSU for homecoming. I don't know. I can't really point out one. So I'll just say like just playing football in the swamp and being a Gator. That's something I cherish for the rest of my life.
So Dallas, what was your favorite team to play against while you were at Florida? I mean, was there one rivalry game that you enjoyed the most?
So I would probably have to say Florida State coming into my career. And when I said I want to be a Gator, just because probably out of my 12 siblings, me and my brother are probably the closest. And I can't believe I just said that. I finally admit it. But he became a Florida State fan at some point. So we would go back and forth. And so I would always let him have it. But I would probably have to say Tennessee just because the history behind that with the slap. For years, I played it down because, you know, Shane, this is different than any other interview. Like, you played the game also at a high level. And like I said, like, I hold you to a certain standard because you're part of the reason why I went to Florida. I told you that. So you understand that coaches tell us to say certain things, and that's why I would always play it down because I was coached to play it down. But Tennessee, I took pride in beating them all the time just because of the whole slap. I shouldn't have done that, but everyone knows it wasn't handled fairly.
Yeah. Speaking with Dallas Baker here on the Titan MR hotline, Dallas Baker, the touchdown maker. Dude, you got a national championship ring and a Super Bowl ring. I played 14 years in the NFL. I didn't even sniff even a championship game, and didn't get a national title obviously in college. Man, that's got to be pretty cool, especially when you go out recruiting, right?
Oh man, that's a blessing. Like, yes, it is. It's I will say that it's a great feeling. Again, you grow up as a kid saying, "I'm gonna win a national championship, I'm gonna win a Super Bowl." When both of them happen, still to this day, it's been a while, and it still seem unreal.
We got a Facebook Live question here for you, brought to you by Melvin Law, where you matter most. It comes from Evan. Evan wants to know, Dallas, what got you into coaching?
The impact that my coaches had on my life growing up, even from Pop Warner football. I mean, the coaches I had, I knew from the jump they had my best interest, from Coach Dixon to Coach Fedora, and then Coach G, Coach Meyer, Coach Zook, Coach Strong. I can go on and on. Just the coaches I had, yeah, they were great coaches, but more than anything, they cared about us and they showed it. So that's when I was like, you know what? I want to be a coach so I can have the same type of relationship, so I can make a difference in the world in a positive way.
Yeah, and speaking of being a coach, who would you say, obviously you coach the receivers, you coach a position that you played, which I think is, there's some guys that coach positions they didn't play, and I don't believe in that, but you've played the position at a very high level. Is there one coach that you take a little bit from? Is it Coach Dixon, Coach Gonzalez, from teaching your wide receivers?
I just about take everything from Coach G. Everyone knows I love Coach Meyer. That's like my dad. I love Coach G. That's like my dad. But I just about copy everything Coach G does. So 2 years ago, I actually visited home, which is the University of Florida for me. That's home. And I was with Coach Hevesy and I was with Coach G. And we were sitting down, we were talking. And we were talking about guys doing interviews and the way they coach. And Coach Mullen came in, while we were eating or whatever, and he was telling me how he was proud of me, that I grew up. And I'm like, I mean, I am 30-some years old. I'm not the 20, 21-year-old kid you knew. And then he started laughing. And then he was like, and I heard you doing a great job coaching. And Coach Hevesy goes, all he does is copy off of Billy. And then we all start, because that's exactly what I do. I love Coach G. There's not a week that go by that we don't talk. I mean, I text him on Saturday, and I'm going to be honest because we have this type of relationship. So I text him on Saturday, and he didn't text me back till Monday. So I haven't responded to him yet. But that's our relationship. Like I said, that's like my dad. I love him. I love Coach G. People see I cry when I talk about him because, man, Coach G has been there for me through thick and thin. I can't talk highly enough about Coach G.
Yeah, that's a great thing about coaching, man. And what's going to be, 15, 20 years from now, all those kids you're coaching at Marshall are going to be saying the same thing about you. Dallas, so when you're out on the recruiting trail, obviously you run into Coach Gonzalez and other guys that you've been around. Does Marshall, is it one of these deals where you may call Coach Gonzalez and say, hey, take a look at this guy. I don't think he's a Power 5 type receiver, but do you think he's good enough to play for us? Do you ever ask those type of questions to him?
Not really. So when I first started working here, speaking of how great Coach G is, so in 2017, I started working here, and I got a call from every coach that ever coached me, especially the big dogs. Every one of them called me, congratulated me. It was like, welcome to the family, welcome to the fraternity. And Coach G, he helped me through the process. And he called me and he said, recruit. And I'm like, yeah, Coach, I know that. I know that's a major part of me. I played for Coach Meyer. I would hear how he would talk to you guys about recruiting. And I said, what's going to be weird is if me and you recruit the same person. And Coach G actually got upset with me. And he stopped me and he said, if you have an opportunity to take a kid from me and to stump me in the ground, you better do it. I'm like, yeah, but Coach G, he's like, there is no but. He's like, there is no but. He's like, you have a job to do. If you could take a kid from me, take a kid from me. So we don't really talk about recruiting just because he knows I understand the expectations. Now, I will say this. He pulled a slick one on me. So he called me, asked me about a kid. I gave all my input, and then the kid committed to the University of Florida a day after he offered him. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm the young pup, and he's the old vet in this. So that has happened.
That's great. Back to your uncle, Wes Chandler. It's interesting. And you also play with Percy. A lot of people think Percy is the most dynamic player that has ever played at Florida with the ball in their hands. But a lot of the old people say it's Wes Chandler. Did you ever get to see a lot of footage of Wes playing at Florida?
Yes. My grandmother had a bunch of tapes that because he would move around, and so he would leave the tapes there, and I would watch those tapes. Growing up, the late 80s, 90s, Karate Kid was around. I would watch those tapes more than I would watch Karate Kid or anything else. Like, there was not a morning I wouldn't wake up, eat a bowl of cereal, and pop in one of those tapes and watch it. And I never really understood that my uncle was Wes Chandler. Like, people would talk about him to the point when I got to high school, we would actually get into it a bunch. Like, he would stay on me about my grades, and he would ask 1 or 2 questions about football just to ask, but he was more concerned about life and school. But when he would ask about football, I'd be like, I remember I would say things like, I already know that. Like, I'm better than you at this point. And he would laugh, but I was serious because I never really understood Wes Chandler was my uncle until I got to college. And of course, I got humbled because now with all these other 3, 4, 5-star guys, and I actually got a chance to see how good my uncle really was.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. And, it's interesting when people compare him and Percy. Dallas, let me ask you this. Being a former receiver at a major university who won a national title, got to play in the NFL as well, when you sit in your meeting rooms with your other wide receivers, every receiver wants the damn ball, right? I'm wide open on every play. So how do you – I'm sure you were one of those guys too. Come back to the huddle. Chris, I'm wide open. Why are you not throwing it?
That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah. So how do you handle your guys when they're bitching and complaining, when they come back to the huddle or, nobody even huddles anymore. So when they're sitting in the meeting and y'all are going over practice tape and so-and-so is not getting the football and he's complaining and pouting, how do you as their receiver coach handle that now?
It's 2 things. And one of them is so simple, but I feel like I'm given a major key. And I've only been coaching 6 years now. But a lot of people don't understand this, which is amazing to me. But I see now why it's a major key. But so I would have to say the first one is a lot of guys, if you have played this game, and again, you understand, if you played this game, you already get their attention. But the second part is, and a lot of people don't understand this, and that's why I say I'm giving a major key, not to sound arrogant. If you have a relationship with these players, you could just about get them to do whatever you want because they trust you, and not in a negative way. I'm not saying that, but I've played this, so they respect me. But the relationship I have with them, they trust me. Like, look, don't complain. Just continue working. The ball will find you. It's just as simple as that. It's all about your relationship. When you don't have a relationship with your players and you try to get them to buy in something, you know how hard that is? And that comes from Coach G. I remember Coach Meyer in the team meeting. This was probably a month after he had been there. And he asked us, he said, so how many guys in here trust me? And, of course, everybody raised their hands because, that's what you do. When your coach asks you a question like that, you raise your hand even if you lie. And Coach Meyer said, well, I don't trust any of you guys because I haven't been around you guys long enough. He was like, "No, our relationship need to grow to where we could trust one another, and you guys shouldn't trust me because we haven't been together long enough." And when he said that, that just has stuck with me for life. Like, how do I walk in a room and I tell my receivers, don't do this, don't do that? And you get what I'm saying, Shane? Like, how can you trust me if I don't have a relationship with you? Like, I can't sit here and come into work, coach you, and then work is over, just go home and you don't hear from me. And, like, it doesn't work like that. So I thank God that I had coaches that showed me if you build a relationship with a player, that's where trust builds.
No doubt about it. Last thing for you, Dallas. I want to get your thoughts on Coach Mullen. You know, he was your offensive coordinator when you played here. Y'all won a lot of games, championships. He's come back in 2 years, already won 21 games and 2 major bowl wins. Do you like the way the program's headed right now?
That's my guy there. And I'm not just saying it because he's the head coach. Like, we talked when he was at Mississippi State. Here's why Coach Mullen's my guy. First of all, he is a family person. And I said this when I came and talked to the team. We talk all the time. I actually talked to him on the phone 3 weeks ago. That's just who he is. But Coach Mullen loves his players. He loves his players' family. Like, so I say my first 2-3 years at Florida, I was struggling. And Coach Meyer, Coach G, all those guys came in. And we were in spring ball. I was having a good spring. And then one day, for some reason, like, I was focused, but I was dropping passes. I couldn't line up the right way. And it was because I was going back into the old Dallas Maker mode where I was making it bigger than what it was. And Coach G was getting on me. Coach Meyer was getting on me. And when practice was over, Coach Mullen, like, pulled me to the side. I'm like, all right, here we go. He's probably going to tell me I'm a backup now or yell at me. And Coach Mullen, he said this, and I tell him this all the time, Shane. He said, you think I'm going to keep throwing you ball if you drop it? And I gave an honest answer like any other player would. I was like, no, sir. It's like, what are you thinking? It's like, Dallas, you're 6'3", you're almost 210 pounds. You can run. You have the ability. I'm going to keep throwing you the ball because eventually something great is going to happen. And I looked, I'm like, what? So you telling me about it's okay if I drop the ball, like there's no pressure? Because that was my issue. And I've been told from coaches, never say you had confidence issues. 18 to 20, 21 years old at that time, everyone has confidence issues, whether it's off the field or on the field. So I disagree with that. So I had confidence issues. When he told me that, not to sound arrogant, but that's when I became Dallas Baker, the touchdown maker.
My man, you're going to be a star coaching receivers no matter where you are. Good luck to the Marshall Thundering Herd this year. And we're going to be following y'all, and we'll have you back on here once the season's over, buddy.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you for everything.